Hey, everybody. As you found out, Lisa and I really love to back up a lot of the feng shui techniques with research. And you can look down at the bottom of this first slide. To successfully practice feng shui today, one needs to know much more than even 30 years ago, let alone 3,000 years. As I was telling you before, there's an awful lot of updating that goes on. So to know feng shui and to understand it, you really always need to consider nature and what is natural. And so I'm going to give you some research and some studies here showing you that there really is a connection between what we are preaching and what affects mankind. Here's a study about having an office with a window and not having one. They found out that folks that had an office with a window had less health concerns, including even cancer. So they were able to connect to nature pretty much all day long, whereas an office in the interior didn't have the same thing. So they found an employee was not only healthier, but they were more productive and happier when they had access to the outside view. And there is some companies in Germany that actually make sure that their employees, especially the ones in the interior offices, have the right to get up every hour and walk by a window. They understand the importance to this. There's another study that was done in the state of Wisconsin. They found out that an area that has more green space, in other words, landscaping, where you live, the happier you seem to be. They used satellites to actually look at where the tree canopy was heavier. They found out if the tree canopy was less than 10%, that these inhabitants were more depressed, more stressed, and more anxious. But as you're going to find out, you're going to be able to help your clients a great deal with respect to this just by bringing live plants into their home or into their office. So I'm going to give you, again, a lot more studies here to just back up what we're talking about. Here's one that I found very interesting in the publication called Frontiers in Psychology, that just mentally picturing a nature scene can help ease anxious feelings. Here's one from England. They found a link between feeling highly connected to nature and low levels of anxiety. And here's a study that was done with 48 adults with symptoms of anxiety. And again, they found out that this imagery focus reduced their anxiety scores significantly by thinking of and looking at nature scenes. And another study in 2006 found that the pleasure centers of the brain consistently light up when we view landscapes. So it's very, very pivotal that you talk to your clients about getting outside and enjoying nature. But of course, they're going to be bringing nature inside too. They found out in a particular research study that this kind of stuff promotes performance in the workplace. They stay on task. They have greater interest in their work. And a really nice thing is they report more loyalty to their company. There's less turnover. Another study in 2003, again, found out that being placed near a window really was very helpful. In this case, for productivity. They actually generated an additional $3,000. And again, it has a lot to do with the direct sunlight with prediction of how an employee is satisfied in their workplace. So without things like sunlight and live plants, our environment is less healthy. Your clients environments are going to be less healthy. So when you're aiding your clients, make sure you always include these things. So let's look at some other evidence. Maybe some of you remember these days, but they found out that 32 families found out that their mother's stress hormones spiked during the time they spent dealing with their kids' belongings. And that physical clutter overloads your senses, making you feel stressed and impairs your ability to even think creatively. A study out of Princeton found out there's a big psychological effect of clutter to us. Just in sight, it competes for our brain resources. And I've been pushing that for real estate agents for a long time. It's not just the clutter, just the sight of it can do it. So it prevents focus and limits our processing power. Here's a really interesting study out of Japan about sharp edges. They found comparing rounded corners to ones that were 45 and 90 degrees, that the sharp corners had a much larger effect, and it wasn't a good one. It elicited larger negative feelings. Again, poison arrow. You can see by the picture down at the bottom left that more and more builders are considering shaving off corners somewhat like this. This is a much more comfortable idea for an inhabitant. Here's a house that you see all over the United States. These ranches were built in the 50s and 60s all over the place. And as I'm fond of telling people, this is not a very welcoming look. It's got a lot of sharp edges to it. So to make it more welcoming, we have to soften it. So I'm going to soften this particular house just by adding some features. And again, I can't move anything. So when you're trying to reduce the effect of a poison arrow, you try to move it or you try to soften it. So in this case, if you look to the far left, I'm going to add a plant, a hanging plant. Might add another one. But this also softens the sharp edges too, a hedge. And this can actually soften another corner over there. So you're going to be creative about bringing in some landscaping to soften things. You'd find out that these people, even if they're not moving, for example, would feel a lot better about it. They feel like a lot better coming home to this house. So we soften corners like you see in this picture. And you don't have to put the plants, landscaping in the ground necessarily. You can use pots as the obstacle between the corners and where somebody walks up to the front door, for example. And a lot of you probably do something like this, where you actually soften corners. So again, this is a much more comfortable feel and look to it. Now, believe it or not, people with clean houses are actually healthier. They're healthier than people with messy houses. So you want to keep that in mind when you're talking to your clients. They found that when they were actually healthier, when they were more active, when they took care of things. So house cleanliness was really a great predictor of their physical health, even more so than how easy it was to walk around. So that deep cleaning is a really big emotional uptake for you. Here's a study about clutter. And these women described their living spaces as cluttered and full of unfinished projects. And they were more likely to be depressed and fatigued than folks that looked at their home a lot differently because they had taken care of these things. You're going to find out sleep is a very important aspect of what we do. Good sleep for our clients is real important. So you're going to get really good at handling the situation for everyone. In this case right here, it showed that people who made their beds every morning were actually 19% more likely to report getting a good night's sleep. And as I said, sleep is very, very important. We're going to be spending a lot of time on that, setting up bedrooms really well. Color is also going to be very pivotal in our studies. Again, we love picking up different research on these things. We found out that in interior offices, it had a lot to do with performance and mood, the colors. Subjects actually made less proofreading errors in offices that were not white. So different colors do have a very large effect on behavior and outcomes. We've mentioned the idea of security already. Very important idea. And one of the first things you really want to take care of for somebody's home. Sadly, some people don't even want to come home. So you want to make sure that they feel very comfortable and very safe all the time. So that, of course, means taking care of things like those poison arrows, for example. So these strategies are really very important and have a lot to do with probability of success for you. So Feng Shui can decrease or even eliminate the severity of this response, this fight or flee, when you enter into an environment. Yes, odor is also important. Feng Shui, the way we teach it, has a lot to do with the five senses. You can understand, I think, that getting that comfort that we're looking for our clients is a lot more than just making sure there's no clutter. If the place doesn't smell well, or if it's too cold, those things have a big effect on how we feel. So the way we smell, different aromas like perfume or tobacco, they conjure up scenes and emotions from our past. Some of them good, some of them not so good. So it's an important aspect of what we do. Smell is just one of those things of taking care of, but it is a very important one to encourage comfort also. Here's a research study on that command position that we've already talked to you, the classic armchair. Research has shown that sitting with your back to a door releases the stress hormone cortisol. That's not good. There are certain times that's something that you want to have happen if you have to react to something quickly. You don't want this going on all day long either. So as we're sitting with the view of the door, it releases the feel-good hormone. So again, the command position that we've already mentioned to you, the classic armchair, has been proven that it works. People are going to be more productive, more comfortable, more creative in that position than you see on that bottom left-hand picture. So, and finally, Feng Shui does affect us both physically and mentally. We can actually prove it. It is never just one or the other. It creates a safe and comfortable environment physically. But just as important, maybe more important, it creates one that is really comfortable for our mental and emotional abilities also. So again, if you want your clients to be successful, you're going to make sure that you take care of all those things.